Hello and welcome to MakeNew Talks. It's your host Elise again, here with a new topic, some special guests, and some good soul food to help us continue to mature in Christ together. And I hope you guys all had a swell week. And today what we're going to do in the chat is put an emoji of an activity that you did this past week. Whether you are taking some Z's, because there's that Z's emoji, or you're on your computer for most of the week, either on Zoom or playing some kind of video game, or you're on Instagram. I guess there's a camera emoji, but that's the closest thing you can get. So while you guys put in the chat of just the different emojis that you guys did, one emoji I wanted to share of what I did is the running girl emoji you see here, because me and my housemates, we've been exercising to body combat training, been learning a lot of different martial arts moves, and I think the most interesting one is probably Muay Thai, because a lot of it looks like you're slapping people, but actually you're hitting people with your elbow, which I learned later. But let's see what people got so far. Oh, nice. Eating food. Yep. Playing video games. YouTube. Sounds about right. I think with summer, that's probably what most of you guys are doing nowadays. All right. Okay. So we are now in our third segment of MakeNew Talks. So some of you guys are veterans now to this channel, while some of you guys might be new. So for those of you who are new, this is MakeNew Talks, where we as MakeNew Christian Fellowship at Mason have candid conversations on topics such as Christian discipleship, life in general, and current events through the lens of the gospel. And if you're new here, welcome. We're really glad you're here to join us. And so a reminder for the people who are new and for those who are joining us again, please feel free to engage in the chat throughout the entirety of the stream. You know, we want to hear you guys. We want to hear you guys make comments. Please ask questions. And if you do have questions and you write it in the chat, we'll be sure to answer them at the end of the stream as well. We'll scroll through it and see, if you guys ask questions, and we'll try to answer them. And so let's get started. So we have some new folks around the table today and special guests. So let's welcome our panelists today. Woo! Yay! So the people that you don't see that are familiar, besides me, Billy, Monica, and Pastor Will, these are actually all Billy and Monica's friends from college. They all graduated from UC Davis, go Aggies, and they all graduated in 2010. So the reason why you guys don't see them that much is probably because they're not part of GMU Make New. They're actually part of DMV Inner High Ministry, which is actually a ministry where they actually provide youth group services to churches who are under-resourced and cannot provide a youth pastor for the youth group. And so, they're part of a different ministry, but they're joining us today. And so we're going to do some introductions. And so what the panelists will do is introduce their name. They'll also introduce their occupation and one word to describe themselves when they were in college. And so let's go ahead and start with Billy and Monica.
You go first?
Sure. What's up, guys? Monica. And what was I like in college? I just was fun seeking. Always tried to seek for anything that was fun.
I'm Billy. You guys all know me. One word that I would like to describe myself in college would be ambitious, but I know everyone here on the panel would say I was fobby. So I guess fobby.
Great.
Hey everyone, I'm Shara. I am currently working as a PA, and one word to describe me would be also ambitious. But unlike Billy, I wasn't fobby at all.
Hey, I'm Charlene. One word for me is I used to be very studious, and currently right now I'm working as a software tester.
Ooh. Hi, I'm Jenny, and I currently work as an admin analyst, and then one word to describe myself was non-committal.
Oh, okay. Sure. My name is Eric, and I work as an accountant right now. And one word to describe me is I just wanted to relax, just chill in college. I didn't want to study.
Almost.
Would you like to share too?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my name is William, and I am a pastor. And one word to describe me in college was intense. And I'm not talking about camping, but intense. That's what I was.
You gotta show the motorcycle suit.
The motorcycle suit? Yeah, I know. I was even intense about riding motorcycles. Everything I did, I just was very intense about it, and I think I scared people away.
Oh no. Yeah. For
Actually,
another
some-
talk, we'll show Pastor Will's my motorcycle days.
Oh, I missed that motorcycle. Gotta ask Esther if I can have one. Esther, can I have one? If I can have one, don't say anything. Oh!
You can say something in the chat.
Oh, she's writing in the chat. Oh, okay.
Well, thank you guys for those fun introductions. So for today's topic, our special guests are actually here to provide insight into the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is actually how to deepen in your relationships. And it's because these panelists, they've been friends for over 10 years. For many of us, 10 years ago, we were barely turning 10 ourselves. And so, yeah, sorry to date you guys, but it's actually pretty cool because they have something special in their relationships that we as young ones, I think, have yet to experience, especially when these kind of friendships revolve and are originated upon a shared understanding and foundation on the gospel and a relationship with God. And so, I think we all want friends, and we have friends or even have lost friends. And I think we can all agree that as human beings, we need people in our lives. We need community. So what does that look like in real time? And how does having a solid relationship with God lead to such long-lasting and rich relationships? Well, thankfully, today we get to have these folks around the table here who can testify to their experiences of that. And so we'll start with some fun stuff. So for the panelists here, what were your first impressions of each other back in the day? So we'll start with the Max again.
Okay, I'll start with so Jenny, my friend Jenny. There's Jenny and Eric, they're married. Jenny was this like skater girl from San Jose. She wore like those skater brands. I thought she was too cool. And then Charlene, who, she actually really was studious. We thought though that she was like that cool kind of like upperclassman, mature kind of studious, like as if she were a grad student. And then there's Shara. Shara was, the Miss, you were a cheerleader, right? That's a true story. She was a cheerleader, the ASB president, prom queen type of person. And so, as you guys can tell, even from these descriptions, we were all very different. And then for the guys, I feel like they were overall quiet, so we kind of ignored them. And we just, had a lot of fun on our own. So I don't know. I don't remember my first impressions of all the guys.
Well, I had a first impression of the girls. They were just loud.
Oh my gosh.
Who was the loudest?
Oh, definitely Charlene.
What? No.
So hear me out. Okay, so Jenny and I were in a philosophy class in the building. We were inside a class, attending our class. And
I don't remember this.
Class, we could hear Charlene, who's outside the building near the bus stop. We could hear her laugh.
No, Charlene wasn't loud. It was just her laugh that was really loud and really distinct. Like you could hear it.
I think Mono was the loudest.
Yeah.
I'm just the craziest.
You guys hear when there's bugs, she'll just throw everything on the ground or something and start screaming.
It still happened.
Yeah. Anyway, enough about me. Who else?
Billy, you want to share about Eric?
Oh yeah. So that was a really bad impression, I think. So the first impression I have of Eric's like he's someone who's really mean, who's really messed up. Because then the first time I went on a trip with the guys and we went to Sierra Lodge, a site that we have, and it was like around December time, so it was snowing. And then him and another guy was like throwing snowball at me the whole time. I barely knew them at the time, and I'm like, wow, this guy's not very welcoming.
It wasn't just you, man. It was just like, it was all these, I think you were the easiest target. And then the more that we threw snowballs, you just got more and more angrier. So it was kind of fun, You were Bobby. So.
We get a lot of snow here. I know where you live.
Oh my God.
Yeah, for Billy, he had this like accent, and I just thought you still do, yeah. And you didn't really grow up in America, so I know you came out though. You came out to our fellowship, and I want to be nice. I just kind of say, hey, what's up? I really didn't want to hang out with you at all. I'm my type, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
very different personalities all around, I think. Just hearing from all of your first impressions of each other. While they're very funny and also very endearing. But I think for a lot of us, probably we can say the same about maybe some of our friends too. Yeah, probably pretty different.
Okay, so
But
can I share?
Oh no.
Okay, so I didn't know these wonderful people when they were in college, but in 2011, after you guys were a year out of college, I moved up to Davis and I became their pastor. And so I remember Eric. Eric was a lover of exotic foods because the first thing he did as a welcome gift to me was he bought the balot, which is a half-developed embryo egg that a chicken or some type of bird, and then it's a Filipino delicacy, and you're supposed to crack it open and you're supposed to swallow it with juice and everything. He bought 2 of them, one for himself, one for me, and he insisted that I try one, but I never did. But I thought that it was quite interesting that he had an adventuresome heart in terms of exotic food. Billy to me was the Hong Kong John Travolta. There was a movie out in the 70s called Saturday Night Fever, and you guys probably don't know. Your parents might know. John Travolta, he's doing his disco, but he was wearing all white. Billy, he wore like tight polyester pants with black shirt, and he looked like a Hong Kong John Travolta type of gangster. And so Billy, he looks cool. He's a handsome guy. We call him Hun Shuai Ren, which means very handsome man. But God humbled him by giving him his accent. And so it all kind of equals out, So he could look cool, but then he's not cool because as soon as he starts talking. But thankfully, he's here, not in Hong Kong, because I think he would have been really cool then. If Saturday Night Fever is still in, I don't know if it is. The 4 ladies here. Well, the 3 ladies here. It was Shara was MC Shazam, and then Monica was MC Mo, and then Jenny was Grandmaster Cha, and they were all in this video, this kind of Newston Welcome Night video or something like that, and they all did some type of hip hop type of dancing or something like that.
Break dancing.
Yeah. And then that was my impression of them. And then Charlene was a smart one. She got a master's in chemistry or something like that. So she's really smart. But she had this. She always said, whenever I saw her, she always said, "Hey, what's up?" Hey, what's up? Really casually. And so that was really fun about her. But she's an amazing cook because her parents, they own a really good Chinese restaurant in San Francisco. So she makes really good food, and she made a lot of that for us at Davis. So just really thankful for that. But yeah, these guys all are very interesting, and I'm thankful to have been a part of their lives for the past 9 years, I think. 9 years, going on 10. So thankful that we're all at Fairfax. Like, who would have thought that, we met in Davis. Now we're all here in Fairfax on the other side of the country. So I think that's really neat.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And thank you for all of your first impressions. They're so fun. I didn't know a lot of them. So yeah, I'm learning a lot too. It's great. And yeah, I think in the midst of that 10 years, I wonder, how did you guys all grow, whether it was in your relationships or relationship with God? And I think that's what we're going to head into next. And so a question that I have for all of you is, what helped you guys grow in your relationships with each other?
I'll start. So I think times of being gathered together at our leaders' houses and being taught God's word together. We always have good food. So there was always good food, and then a good time of learning God's word together, through DT sharings or discipleship. And so I think because we didn't know each other very well, we were all split up in different groups when we first came, or we came to our church later on. Not everyone came out freshman year. It required our leaders and our mentors to initiate gathering us and getting us to know each other's backgrounds. So it was helpful for me to since I came to our church as a non-Christian, as a seeker, and to know that we were all different, some people churched and some not churched, it helped me because I saw that it really didn't matter what our backgrounds were. Because on that Friday night at a Bible study, or at that Saturday morning breakfast in DT, or that Wednesday night dinner in discipleship time, I knew that like each of us made that choice to come. And we were gathering because we were all at a juncture in our lives where we wanted to learn more about God. And so that was really one way that we grew closer together. Also through serving together, like, set up on Sundays, or even mission trips, learning how to lead life groups together. All of that helped us to grow, as we experienced these things together.
Yeah. What about for you, Jenny? What would you say helped you grow?
Mine's pretty similar to Monica too. Just when we were all committing to, like put out the bad influences and the friendships that were just negative influences for us, that in our senior year, we wanted to all live together. And so just committing to do that together, it really helped me to make those decisions to kind of cut my friendships. And then through that really helped me to grow in my relationship with them and with God, because one thing that held me back was my double life. And so when I chose to live with them in our senior year, like what Monica was saying, we got to serve together. We were like freshman helpers, so we helped with freshmen, reaching out to freshmen and all that. So that really helped me grow.
Yeah. You guys talked about living together, right? And so I think, Charlene, you started living with them in your junior year, right? And so you wanted to share about that.
Yeah. When I went to college, there was 3 of my high school friends that went to college with me, and one of them became my dorm mate. And I lived with them all the way up until like the end of my junior year. But as we advanced in college, we started seeking different things. They started getting into partying and dating, and then I got interested in seeking Christianity. So we grew apart, and it got so bad, like, get home and they would just close the door doing their own thing. And then when I actually asked them about it, it was really awkward, and they didn't really admit to the tension or the distance. Whereas I guess at church, the relationship I experienced at church was that, it was about covenant relationships, and just had a different perspective and feel in relationships, and that really drew me in. And that's what I really experienced with my peers and other people at church.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for you, Shara?
Yeah, I think for me, what really helped me, well, when I first met my friends, I was coming out of just a time of just partying and getting out of a relationship. And so I was really lonely, and I was really looking for friends. And these were the people who God had placed in my life. Like, we were so different, but they're the ones who God put in my life. And I think just learning to accept that. And I was really thankful for them, because even though they were different from the friends that I had, they were nice people who were seeking God too, and who didn't judge me or made me feel like I had to act or be a certain way in order to fit in. And so that really helped. And then doing discipleship courses together where we would learn how to memorize Bible verses. Do you guys remember in
in accents?
It was like SK1, we were challenged to memorize verses, and then we would do them in like weird accents to try to like
accents,
Korean accent, right?
Yeah,
we still need a steak dinner.
What? No, we never.
Oh yeah, the guys owe us a steak dinner.
Exactly.
Memorizing verses.
We totally beat them.
Yeah, we totally beat them. Yeah, we should ask, get a record. But just having these discipleship courses where we got to just gather around God's word and do it together, and then to also serve together. So one of my most memorable moments was our Mexico mission trip at the end of I think it was our senior year. It really gave me a vision for what life would look like if I were to just hold on to these friends and to serve God and to do it alongside with leaders and mentors. And also having older people, because to see their relationships and how many years they've lasted was really something amazing to me, because for me in high school, relationships are really temporary and shallow. And I never thought like friendships or any kind of relationship would last beyond a certain season of life, like whether it's that class or high school or that semester. And so, yeah, now to be on a panel talking about friendship, I think is really amazing. So I think God really held on to me and gave me these friends. And so those are the things that really help.
Yeah, I think definitely spending a lot of time with each other really helped. And I think in particular, spending time with my friends working together toward a common goal, loving God and helping grow in my relationship. So Eric and I, when we were younger, we lived a life group together in Davis. And I think each week we did a lot of planning. We taught Bible study. I think spending time together wrestling in how to raise a group of guys helped us get closer. I remember we just stayed up like at night together preparing for our material for the Bible study for the next day. And then waking up early the next morning to do DT together. So yeah, definitely spending time together helped a lot to grow in our relationship. I think now looking back, Shara was talking about that Mexico mission trip that they went on. I really regret that I didn't go because I was ambitious at the time, and I want to graduate college early. Right out of junior year, I graduated and then got an internship, and that mission trip happened to be right when I started, and I decided to just stick it through with my internship instead of going to a mission trip. And to this day, 10 years later, they talk about the mission trips and a lot of stories they share, and I couldn't laugh with them.
Smokey, no.
But I did hear one story about Eric, though. Eric, you were trying to say how you're muy guapo, meaning like you're really handsome, right? But you instead of saying that, you said something else. Jenny, what did he say?
You're gordo, muy gordo.
Little kid. Little kid was telling me like, oh yeah, you're gordo. Oh man, I'm handsome. Oh man. I realized, oh man, he's calling me fat.
Yeah, I missed out on a lot of that, because I chose something that I was pursuing after instead of spending time with my friends. So
yeah, and for me, me and Billy, we didn't really like connect together, but then I think after seeing Billy and after we graduated, we both wanted to take God seriously, and now I think that's really got me to get connected with Billy even more. I just saw his like compassion, his love toward reaching out to the lost, people who didn't know about Christianity, and that was my goal as well. So for that, I was like, I'm just gonna put aside like differences, and I really want to get to know who this guy is, and we're pretty good friends. Yeah, through that.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Such nice stories.
Now, you guys worked at the same place after you graduated, right? You guys carpool and stuff, and
yeah. That really got me a job.
So
Thanks.
much
Yeah.
that we can talk about, but a lot of can't share on the internet.
are you?
What?
You mean during the car ride, or?
Oh, that's a lot. But I mean, we used to live together in the same apartment complex.
Oh yeah.
We did DT together when we woke up, and then we commuted to work together. That's like what, 30 minutes away. And we work in the same company for the same department. Get off work, sometimes we go to Costco to get groceries and then go back home. And then we were in the same ministry together. So we butt head a lot when we were in college. We had a lot of fights.
Oh.
Remember we used to try to leave work early to get to Bible study in time? But we didn't want to leave like early. So you want to leave like right at 5. So we would like duck like in between the hallways, see Michelle was there.
Yeah.
Michelle was our big boss. She wasn't there. We like run to the elevator.
Run.
It sounds like
beat the traffic.
You guys are the odd couple or something like that. The modern day odd couple.
Yes, that's also
Yeah, look at that picture.
story came out where we shared the same Tupperware and we ate dumplings together.
Yeah. I remember that.
Our coworkers took it the wrong way, I think. Right, Eric?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow. Well, yeah, I noticed that in all of your sharings, what really helped you guys get close is the shared desire to like grow in your faith with God. I think that was like, the connecting factor that transcended those shallow differences you guys initially had mentioned in your impressions. Like for Billy and Eric, they were able to encourage and help each other grow and spur each other on to take actions to mature in Christ. Or with Monica, Jenny, Shara, and Charlene, they were all able to recognize their need for accountability from one another and also had a shared desire to grow in their understanding of the gospel. And so I think it's really interesting because like relationships based around Christ become this like 2-for-1 package deal where we get to pursue God and we do it with others and we get these rich relationships. But as we invest in these rich relationships that are based on the gospel, we then actually get to grow in our faith as we run together and spur each other on. And for you bio majors out there, I took bio maybe like a year and I quit. But what I did learn was that I think this is like a symbiotic relationship where like, you get to, I guess, like benefit off of having both. And so for you guys on the panel, like how did your relationships then, like on the flip side, help you grow in your faith?
Yeah, I'll go. So yeah, for me, it's been encouraging to like run this race together with them. Yeah, if you think about like in a marathon, like because personally I'm someone who hates running. It's so easy to quit. But God placed these friends in my life to actually run alongside of me. There's like older people who run ahead of me and younger people who like run behind. But then like there we were in college going through life together, trying to find out, how to grow in our faith at the same time. And so it gave me motivation to continue on and do what it takes to live out Christian life. They've been by my side as I learned things, as I actually became a Christian, as I first started learning how to like do DT, like together we'd share our struggles and pray for one another, and we would be there for each other through like really dark times. If we ever just wanted to quit because it was too hard following God. My friends, the ones right here, they held me accountable. They prayed for me, gave me a reason to keep on going. So thank you guys.
Oh.
Nice.
What about for you, Jenny?
For me, I just saw. For me, I'm pretty independent and self-reliant. I don't like asking for help. And then but in our senior discipleship, our pastor, he gave this African proverb, and he gave it to us, and it basically says like, if you want to go fast, you go alone, and if you want to go far, you go together. And so I see that to be true for me because I know life's hard, and sometimes life throws curveballs at you, and I've been able to go further along in my walk with God and just in life in general with my friends here, just sticking by me, praying for me, and just strengthening me whenever I felt down.
I don't know about you guys, but all this like talk about running like makes me tired, but we can do it with people, What about for you, Charlene?
For me, it's been crucial to have my friends in my walk with God because in like the last 11 years, there's been several points where I wanted to quit my relationship with God because it was too hard because of my sins or because a character issue came out. And it really helped to just have my friends physically there so I could yell at them and say, I want to quit. And then they could yell back at me and say, you can't, or something. Like Mom would just be like, you can't quit right now. And then that would just really help me make it through. So, yeah.
Oh man, must have been very loud at your house.
Late night
And I were
conversations.
roommates in one part of the apartment, and then Shara and Jenny were roommates in the other part. And so it was loud, but it was fun. We would have these late night talks, like sharing with each other. And I guess I yelled. I don't really remember.
Yeah, our neighbors upstairs would like bang on the floor because we're too loud.
Oh, yeah. What about you, Shara? What was your experience like?
Yeah, so I would definitely echo what Charlene said. I think it's so true that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my friends. They've been through with me through a lot of really hard and difficult times, and especially through different periods where I was dealing with a lot of unconfessed sin, and I had a hard time of really wanting to come out and be honest. But my friends, I remember them just sitting there with me just so I could reflect. Like they had no idea what was going on, but just to be there with me, to know that I'm not alone. Because I think for me, the scariest part about like confessing and being known is that if people knew who I was, like they wouldn't want to be around me. And if God knew who I was, he'd just reject me. And just having my friends physically there was just a reminder for me of how, yeah, I'm not alone. And that's happened multiple times. And I remember one of the first times this happened was actually our sophomore year, where I was going through stuff and Monica came over with a box of ice cream sandwiches, like out of nowhere. And she just came and we went on a walk, and I just had an opportunity to kind of just for the first time, like just share like what I was going through. And as we're taking this walk, like ice cream is like melting down my hand. I'm like, tears are crying. And in between bites, I'm like, you know, pouring out my heart to her. And I just remember feeling really thankful that I had somebody I can just be honest and vulnerable with. And that's kind of characterized our relationships over the past couple of years, just that kind of, yeah, just being there for each other. And so I think that really helps.
Yeah, I think having people around you that give you positive influence is very important in our relationship with God. I remember when we were in college, you know, Eric, me, and Mark. Mark is in Davis right now. The three of us went to Taiwan for a mission trip for a junior year summertime. And we were feeling really excited at the mission trip, and our heart were all like really burdened for the people in Taiwan. And then, you know, a few years later, Eric decided to go to Taiwan to serve as a 1-year missionary. He put his career on hold. He put his dating engagement on hold, and to serve God in Taiwan for a year. And I was really challenged by that. After he left for Taiwan, I really wanted to do my best to be faithful to the group of guys that we were doing ministry together with. As he tries to give the best of his years of his life to serve in Taiwan, I wanted to do likewise while I was back in Davis. So, you know, I think, you know, having your friends who are mutually committed to the gospel, to the call that God has for us, it really spurs us on to try to be faithful to what God given us. So that has been something that really helped me in my walk with God, just having my friends seeing my friends taking steps of faith.
Yeah, and just to echo that, I mean, I think living out Christian life is hard by itself, and it's encouraging to know that, you know, I'm not alone living out this Christian life. And, you know, with Billy there, and I just remember even a couple of years ago, just going through a hard time, and I remember we just FaceTime each other or Google Duo. And then we just, he was like my soundboard, logical soundboard. Just kind of, you know, talk me through my thoughts, feelings, and whatever that was going on. I think something that always challenges me too is kind of seeing, you know, his example, his willingness to even share the most embarrassing things, you know, like kind of those heavy burdens that's on his heart. And that encourages me to also like be open and vulnerable as well. So I think it's just even having that close relationship with other Christians, that's always able to help me, you know, be more closer together.
Yeah, you guys, like, I think about, you guys actually switched places, you and Billy. It's like you went to Taiwan and Billy stayed in America to do ministry. You think it's like the other way around, but
yeah.
Eric doesn't know Chinese.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Hey, English got better.
It's a lot.
It's funny.
talking Chinese, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't really know Chinese. I was the American, yeah.
Yeah, every time someone like asks like, who speaks Chinese here? And Eric raises his hands, like someone would say, no, you don't.
No, that's the reason why I didn't go in the first place, because people would just say, no, you don't. I was like, forget it.
No, you still
I'm just going to raise my hand now. I'm just going to volunteer. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And look what where you guys are now. Like Pastor Will mentioned earlier, I'm sure Pastor Will and the older ones, they can testify to this like a lot more, but it's amazing to see lives intertwined and to see like relationships where you guys can go through milestones together, like graduating college together, getting first jobs together, getting married and having kids. And for me, like many others, we're still in our young stages of that process. And looking at the older ones, it gives me a lot of hope and expectation to see that this is what my relationships can look like too, as I continue to pursue God and make the commitment to grow in my faith with my friends. And so in light of that, I wanted to give Pastor Will his 10 minutes to share his thoughts on the topic. And afterwards, our panelists will also share some parting words and advice for us who are still young in our faith and still young in our relationships.
Okay, well, thank you. So I have 10 minutes, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, last time you gave me 10, you said 10 minutes, and then I think you gave me 25. So I will try to keep it to 10 minutes, and let's just see how it goes. Okay, well, first of all, I just want to just echo or just give thanks to God for how He's led you guys and how He's kept you together. Being a little older than you, or a lot older than you, I know that one of the treasures in life is people. It's relationships, and it's not just any relationships, but it's relationships that have endured, as they say, the test of time, or have endured a lot of challenges and things that have threatened that relationship. And I think if it is one of those treasures that, if you think about it, long-term relationships that you maintain and have and meet with on a regular basis, it takes time to build. And already you guys are 10 years into this. And so I just want to spur you on and encourage you to keep at it. Okay. The second thing is, I think my thoughts on the topic have pretty much been echoed by everyone. I think what they said is pretty much spot on in terms of how to deepen your relationships. And so I'll just add a few words and share a little bit from a Bible passage, and then I'll call it a net. Okay. So I think the first thing you do want to do in order to deepen your relationships is to spend meaningful time together. Okay. In other words, I say meaningful because it's not just hanging out, and it's not just watching Netflix or going to the movies or getting something to eat, but it's spending some kind of meaningful time together where there's hard work involved, in which everyone who's a part of that fellowship is giving it their all and pushing themselves to the limit, where there's not just hard work, but a lot of stress. And of course, those things go hand in hand. But then you're being stressed out, and then you're being pushed to the limit, and you're in a position in which you have to give it all you got, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes you want to quit, like some of the girls shared here. You want to quit, you want to stop. And also meaningful time together in which there are a lot of stakes involved. In other words, there's something in which if you guys all pull together and you succeed, then something good will happen. But if you guys don't pull together and you fail, then that has some consequences in this world. And if you think about, if you have those opportunities, it's going to create an opportunity for you to rely upon each other. And that's the key thing. You have to learn to rely upon each other. You have to learn to depend upon each other, because that's the only way in which you are going to trust one another. And if you have opportunities like this, then you're going to, and by opportunities, I mean, having that meaningful work. If you have opportunities like this, then you're going to have something that is the greater good, okay? The greater good or the greater goal. And so that's kind of, the greater good, greater goal, and everyone's below that. And we all recognize that that's what we need to achieve. And so we all place that as more important than our individual selves or individual desires or preferences. And so we're able to lay our differences aside, because, some of the girls, they talked about, yeah, we're all different, and you got to lay your differences aside and unify together toward that one common goal. Okay. But then sometimes I know that ego gets in the way. We all have egos, or we all have pride. You could, call it what you want, but it's either ego or pride. And so to have these deep relationships, we need to do something to deal with our ego and pride. And the only way that you can do that, I think, in the world, and the only way you can do that just consistently, or the only reason why you would do that is if you have a relationship with God and you want to draw closer to God. Okay. Now, if you draw closer to God, some amazing things happen, right? You draw closer to God by reading His Word. It's a relationship, and so there's a dialogue, there's communication, and thankfully, God gives us the benefit of communicating to us through His Word. But as you read the Word, you realize, oh my gosh, I don't measure up, or oh my gosh, this reminds me of something that I did earlier today, or this reminds me of something that I did in the past. and you become quite aware of something called your sinfulness, your shortcomings, and it kind of brings out of the closet, things that you haven't been thinking about, and it brings to your brain cache or whatever, or brings to your conscience some things that you feel ashamed about, guilty about. It brings up some sins. And when you're at that moment and you realize God's speaking to you, that the only thing that you can do, well, I guess not the only thing, I guess you could run away. But if you understand that you can't run away, and the reason why God's kind of bringing this up is because he wants to deal with it, he wants to reason with it, he wants to forgive it, and he wants to cover it, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to say, I'm sorry. You're going to repent. And you're going to take ownership over that. And you're going to realize, hey, I'm not such an awesome guy. I'm not such a great guy. But then I've done things. They tell me about a few things about my character, about my values, about my habits, about what I've done. And you realize that you're not such a great guy. In fact, you're what the Bible calls a sinner. But then as soon as you realize that, you recognize that other parts of the Bible that God says is also true, namely that he loves you, namely that he died for these sins, namely that he's forgiven these sins, namely he's paid the penalty for these sins. And you recognize that you have this incredible love that loves you unconditionally, and that God has given that to you freely. And so that's really going to humble you, and that's going to what? It's going to destroy your ego. It's going to humble you. It's going to tear down that pride. And then when there's less ego, you're walking around, and when you interact with people, when you try to draw close to people, there's going to be less ego or less opportunities for that pride to get in the way of your relationships. And you're going to be better able to what? Put God and put others first over yourselves. And so when you're in the context of, those group activities or group projects or meaningful work, you'll be able to experience and cherish these relationships a lot more. So a lot of what I just said, and a lot of what these brothers and sisters said, it reminds me of a sweet relationship in the book of 1 Samuel about David and Jonathan. Okay, a lot of people know David. He's the king, king of Israel, and he's the David in David and Goliath. And so people know what he did, but not a whole lot of people know about Jonathan and the sweet friendship that they had, because this friendship that took place so many years ago is a friendship that never should have happened. Because Jonathan, he was much older than David. David was a youth. He was probably, I don't know, in his teens or early 20s or something like that. Jonathan was much older, maybe in his 30s or 40s. That's what some people think. Jonathan was an accomplished warrior. He's been fighting alongside his father, the king, King Saul, for many years. He was the heir to the throne, so he was next in line. He was the prince of Israel. And we also know that Jonathan, he really loved God more than anything. And he demonstrated through some of his own personal stories, his own personal steps of faith. David, on the other hand, right, he was not an accomplished warrior, but he was an up-and-coming warrior. He was not an heir to the throne because he was, from some other family, but he was the true heir to the throne. He was the one that God chose, not Saul's line, not Saul and Jonathan's line, but it was David's line. And what we know about David is that David, he loved God too. And that all went public when he decided to step up and defend Israel against Goliath. And so we all know that story. But what people don't know is that in the chapter right after David and Goliath, some wonderful words are said. And I'm going to read that from 1 Samuel 18, 1 through 5. Okay, so it says this. It says, as soon as David had finished speaking to Saul, the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David. Okay, so there's a knitting of souls happening, right? So it's a really wonderful metaphor about how Jonathan's soul was knit to David's, because Jonathan had seen David just step up and take care of Goliath. Okay, so the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as his own soul. Okay, so it didn't take too long. It was like he saw it and he realized, man, this guy is amazing. He wants the same things I want. He wants the glory of Israel. He wants the honor of God to be defended. Okay, and then in verse 2, it says, and Saul took him that day and would not let him return to his father's house. And so he's talking about David. So Saul kind of drafted David into his army. And then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as his own soul. Okay, so that's wonderful language there. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David, and his armor, and even his own sword, and his bow and his belt. So something amazing is happening. He's the prince, and he has all this armor. He has weapons. Now, this was kind of like the Bronze Age transitioning over to the Iron Age. So not a whole lot of people had swords. When people fought back then, they had to fight with other types of tools, but only the king and prince and very few people had a sword. And so Jonathan gave David his sword. And so that was a sign that Jonathan recognized that this man is better than himself. In fact, the future of Israel belongs to this man, and this man, David, who's younger, who's not the king, he is going to lead Israel. Okay, and then it says in verse 5, and David went out and was successful wherever Saul sent him, and so that Saul sent him over the men of war, and this was good in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of Saul's servants. So what Jonathan did was he really enabled David to be successful. So much so that people sang so many songs about David. He became this mighty warrior. And Jonathan, he wasn't jealous. He wasn't envious. Why? Because he loved him as his own soul. And why was he able to do that? Because David loved God. Jonathan loved God. And because of that, they were able to get really close. Now, their deep relationship, it was, it continued to happen. But then, to make a long story short, Saul died, Jonathan died next to his father Saul, fighting together to fight the Philistines. And then in 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 26, when David finds out about Jonathan's death, he says this. He says, I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. Very pleasant have you been to me. Your love to me was extraordinary, surpassing the love of women. Okay, so that's quite a statement, right? To say that your love for me was extraordinary, and it was surpassing that of the love of women. Okay, now it's really important because a man saying that about another man, he's saying, man, your love, Jonathan, to me, right, which was love of friendship. It was a filial love, a brotherly love. Your love was much more pleasant than the love of women. And I think that is very rare for any man to say, I think, these days, right? And I think it's kind of significant to bring up this topic because culturally, as a society, it seems that the older someone gets, there is an attrition of friendships that a person experiences. And this is more so than men than for guys. Not sure why it is, but women, when they they have their friendships, and it seems that they're able to maintain their friendships. I think mainly because as life gets more difficult, women, they're more free to talk. They're more open about their feelings, their emotions, and about what's going on. Men, we have our pride, we have our ego. We have to show everyone, hey, we can handle it. And so we keep a lot of things to ourselves. And so as a result, we don't rely upon each other. There's so much that we need to do for our careers and all that kind of stuff that we try to work at it alone, and that requires time. And as time goes on, there's attrition that happens in relationships. And so it's very rare to find a man who could find this kind of brotherly love with another man. But then we see this in the Bible, and this is the kind of friendship that God wants, not just for men, but for women too. I mean, this is the paradigm of friendship that God wants. And so how is this able to happen? Well, it's because they were kindred of spirit. They were united in wanting to honor God. I think in one of the marriage books I've read, and I've read several because I do marriage counseling, the marriage counselor, they say that, okay, husband and wife, if you want to draw closer together, if you want to deepen in your relationships, what you have to do is you have to draw closer to God. And so what they do is they draw a triangle. Okay, so there's a man here, there's a woman here, and then as they get closer to God, because it's an equilateral triangle that they're using as a model, as they get closer to God, the distance between them gets closer, right? They draw closer. And then I think that goes for friendships too. If you're here and your friends are here and both of you want the same thing, both of you want to honor God, then you're going to get closer together. Of course, this goes, of course, you could say this about anything. I mean, it could be like, your love of sports, your love for a football team, or your love for a political party or something like that. And so as you love your political party or as you love a cause or something like that, if you find other people who love the same thing, then you're going to draw closer together. And I'm sure a lot of you experience that. But the difference in this case, when it comes to God, is that, those interests, they can always change. I mean, your political party can change. Your love for a football team can change. Your interests can change. And as soon as that changes, the relationships that you have, they're just going to fall apart. They're going to break down. And, loving God, it's different because God is truth, right? God's always there. God's not going to change. I mean, the worship of God is always going to be there. And so we have an eternal basis by which we can draw closer to God and not fear that changing, right? As long as we're committed to that. And so I think that's what's wonderful about that. Okay. And so I think I'll end it here. And I went over, sorry, Elise, but I think I only went over by 5 minutes or less. But anyways, that's the word I want to give to you guys. And if you have any questions about what I said, or have any questions about anything else, just write that in the chat and I'd be happy to answer that. Elise?
Thank you, Pastor Will. Yeah, I really love that story of David and Jonathan, and really appreciate the insight that you gave from it. And just to reiterate what Pastor Will said, if you do have any questions, it can be anything from that you heard today about relationships, or what Pastor Will talked about from David and Jonathan, whatever it is, please feel free to write it in the questions. As we continue on to the next portion, we'll be happy to answer it. And so the next thing that we're going to go into is our panelists are actually going to share some advice for us who are still young, who still are growing in our own relationships. And so they're going to show a phrase that they want you guys to hold on to, and we'll explain that phrase. So, Monica?
All right. Yeah. So I wanted to share this phrase, so you guys can see that. Run this race together. So get close, open up, don't do Christian life alone. Want you to experience what I'm experiencing with, everybody here. We've been friends for 10 plus years, watched each other struggle and prayed and shed tears for each other, even tears of joy. I found out like college is not just 4 years to get a degree, but you can use this time to know God more. If he's blessed you with friends to do it together with, that's even better. So go and run this race together, practically by taking up opportunities to share struggles with each other, be vulnerable with each other, serve with each other, so you can experience God, deepening your relationships with each other and with him.
Amen.
Okay, so for me, it was to not write each other off due to superficial differences. So, as we shared, we're all different. Like, I never thought, Shara, she was cheerleader, that I would call her one of my close friends. Mon, this Chinatown crazy girl. And then, Charlene is really scholarly, above, I can't read the same books that she reads, whatever. Yeah, but then just like what Pastor Will was just saying, I found that to be true, and I just kind of didn't write them off, and seeing that, I can't picture them being my friends. But as we put God in the center of our relationships, we naturally just put our differences aside too, and just became closer together. And rather than me just seeing that being that one individual life that I wanted to just try to be, now I get to see that collectively we get to be part of something a lot bigger, as we all get to serve here now in Fairfax together.
Here's mine. Says, spurred on one another. So my peers and I actually have a class verse, and I want to share that with you guys. It says, it's from Hebrews 10, 23-24. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering. For he who promised is faithful, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good work. So my advice to you guys is that don't take one another for granted. Choose to live in a way that you can spur one another on to love God, challenge one another, speak truth to one another, and spend time with one another. But not over trivial things, but things that really matter. The gospel, learning to be like Jesus together. In my experience, when we live our life for the Lord, He had blessed me with a lot of good friends. And I think if you live like that, you too would be blessed with friends who are committed to you and that you can do life together.
All right, mine is don't do Christian life alone. And even just like echoing even Pastor Will's talk. I think even just as sometimes I think for guys, I feel the same way. I don't really want to open up to people, but I feel like you don't really need other people. But then actually, and you do, and actually in life, that's what I learned. Yes, you do need a lot more people. And I think one of the precious times I have, even just in college and even outside of college, is just sharing burdens with one another around the campfire, and just really having those like precious moments together. And I would never thought that I would call Billy one of my closest friends, even like 10 years after college. So no, it's true, man. It's true. You're one of my closest friends.
Oh.
3. Yeah. Garrett's number 2.
For me, it's seek God first. I think that our relationships is something that God did as a result of us seeking Him. Because I'm awkward and I'm bad at relationships, but somehow because we've been seeking God first, He really knit us together. And so, just through the leaders we have here at our church and just different things like that, He really, I think, put us all together.
Yeah, mine is don't be afraid to open up. The reality is we're all hurting, we're all insecure, we're all struggling in some way, but we all don't want to seem that way. So don't be afraid to be that first one to say, hey, I'm hurting, I'm weak, I need help. Because once that first person says that, it just lowers down barriers and you can really get deep and you can really just spur one another on to seek God. And so just don't be afraid to be that first one to open up.
Well, thank you guys. I hope everyone watching really, remembers the words that are given to you. If you ever need it, this is going to get published and it'll be forever on YouTube. So you can always come back to it, and remember the phrases that were said. So it's not gone forever, no excuses. And so, thank you to, our panelists for being here. They have so many other stories, you guys. Like, even when we were going through the run through, it's just hilarious. There's so many other stories. And so, I hope, I hope that, you guys will get to meet them in person one day and ask about those stories and get to know them too. Rich relationships means like a lot of fun and very funny stories too. And so, thank you guys for joining us today. Let's everyone give a clap, put some applause emojis in the chat.
We should have Shara give us a cheer.
I can't remember any. That was like 20 years ago, Pastor Will. Only you do it with me.
Let's do it.
No, you should have Monica do her Galileo cheer.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys remember?
Yeah.
What is it?
No, you can do it. I used to go to this high school called Galileo.
I was not a cheerleader, but made fun of them, I guess.
Oh man, one day.
In person. I'll do it in person.
Yay! All right. Okay, thank you guys. And so now it's just the announcements. Well, actually, let's see if there's any questions. which I don't think there is any, but that's okay. If you have questions in the future, you could always ask again another time. But just double checking. Okay. So right now we're going to do our announcements. So this time next week, we'll have our next MakeNew Talks live stream. Same time, same place, same channel, though the YouTube link will be different. So, watch out for that on our website, or like and subscribe to our channel to be notified of the next MakeNew Talk. But then, the best way to get all this info in one place where there'll be links and everything is our newsletter. So in the chat, people will be posting links on how to sign up for our newsletter. So please sign up for that. You'll get all the info and links to our MakeNew Talks, Sunday services, your fill of weekly memes or resources in light of what our nation is going through. So it's a great one-stop shop for all the info that we have as a group. And finally, remember, if you'd like to personally connect with us and other Mason students who are part of our fellowship, hop onto the Zoom link in the description below, or on the live chat on the right as well, where we're going to get some FaceTime and have fun together. I think tonight we're going to do some movement. Don't let that deter you. We still want to see you. So yeah, hope you can join on. And that's all I have for announcements today. So again, if you want more info, you can go to our description and find it there. So we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
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 Thank you for coming.
Guys, later.
See you.